Well, good morning. It's good to be with you on this Monday morning. Hope you had a great weekend. It's big week here in Madison. Spring break for Madison schools. We and our family have had divided spring breaks. My daughter had a Southern Miss spring break last week, so she's back in school this week, and now my son gets spring break. So we're in that great place as a college high school family where we couldn't do anything, so we worked. That's what we did. We worked. So it's all right. It's good when you love what you do. Today we're going to finish up the fruit of the spirit. We have two more to look at, and then we'll be moving on to the rest of Galatians after that. So let's read one for one last time. Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 26. By contrast, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against such things. And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passion and desires. We live by the Spirit. If we live by the Spirit, let us also be guided by the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, competing against one another, envying one another. So today we're going to look at the last two briefly, fruits of the Spirit that we've not gotten to yet, and that is going to be um, gentleness and self-control. Gentleness here is much the same word as in the Beatitudes for meekness. You know, Jesus tells us in the Beatitudes that the meek will inherit the earth. And meekness is such a wonderful word because we hear meekness, we hear gentleness as weakness. We see it as soft, see it as something that is just weak, honestly. And we live in a world now. Let's be honest, y'all. We live in a world that does not value meekness. Meekness is not valued in this age. We live in a world of brashness, in a world of anger, a world of strength. That's where we live in. We live in a social media driven world where being um, not being driven by instant reactions is hard. Everyone wants to say it and mean it and whatever. It's not what we're called to be. Meekness is not, and gentleness is not weakness, because for Jesus, the reason why the meek will inherit the earth is that the meek, the gentle, they have a spine. Let's not see this as weak. What it is finding being angered or being resolute on the appropriate things, on the appropriate things. What really matters? It's like, remember I said kindness is about seeing we are kind because we see everybody's somebody of worth. So we're going to treat them with kindness. We're going to treat them with respect and love, no matter who they are, because they have value. The same way, gentleness is taking that measure of I'm going to love you. I'm going to speak kindly to you. I'm going to not be angry or upset or obsessed or harsh on things that frankly don't matter, that aren't important. Gentleness is taking at calmness of spirit. It is finding the appropriate resoluteness for the things that are appropriate to be resolute about. And everything's not worth being resolute about. You've heard it said, not everything's a kingdom issue. On the kingdom issue, we stand. We stand. I like the old Wesleyan saying, uh, on the essentials, unity. On the non-essentials, diversity. In all things, charity. So we can be gentle on the things that are not essentials. We can be gentle with people. In fact, the Bible tells us it's one of the fruit of the Spirit that we should be seeing. This one may be one of the harder ones for us sometimes. But in this world we live in, gentleness is a great virtue because it's so out of step with where we find ourselves. And so it's finding the appropriate resoluteness for what is appropriate and understanding not every hill is worth dying on, treating life gently and beautifully. And I think that ties into the next one, which is self-control. And one of the best things I've seen in years, something I read where the author said you would think in the world we live in that self-expression, not self-control, is a fruit of the spirit. Self-control is so important because I think self-control is fruit of the spirit because let's contrast it with the works of the flesh. What do you see when you see the works of the flesh? Works of the flesh. Licentiousness, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, anger, quarrels, dissension, factions, envy, drunkenness, carousing, things like this. Out of control. Out of just doing what you want, doing whatever feels good, just living for whatever gives you pleasure or what you think gives you pleasure. It's a life that is out of control, a life that is driven by the passions of the flesh. Well, self-control from the spirit understands, as Paul says, you can do it, but it doesn't mean you should. Self-control is that great quote by one of the founding fathers. You have the right to swing your fist as much as it does not hit your neighbor's nose. So, just like with gentleness and other things, self-control understands that other people have value. And frankly, you have value. You have value. You have worth. So if you live your life, not even respecting yourself, controlling for your control of your own self, how are you going to fully love God? How are you fully going to love your neighbor? Self-control causes not to live by the passions of the moment, not to live by the passions that are driving us. So it also calls us to live a life of health. One of my favorite acronyms is from addiction therapy, HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. When we're in these unhealthy situations, we're more likely to, an addict is more likely to relapse. Likewise, I think spiritually, when we're in that situation, we're more likely to fall into sin. Self-control also demands that we take care of ourselves. It's self-control to sleep regularly. It's self-control to eat a healthy diet. It's self-control to exercise. These things are good for our overall spirit. In fact, think about temptation. I'm preaching on temptation in church right now. Sin is driven by a lack of restraint sometimes. Virtue, discipline, is driven by control. And so for all these fruit of the spirit, the frustrating thing for us can be sometimes think, well, I gotta get better at these things. I gotta do more. I have to work harder. I've got to do these things well and turn it into just another act of the flesh, another situation where we're adding one more thing to our to-do list. And that's not what the fruit of the Spirit are. The fruit of the Spirit is not about me or you bowing up and doing these things, but it's about, as we read, um, those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us be guided by the Spirit. It's about allowing the Spirit to guide us. It's about finding room in our life. And I think, particularly in this Lenten season, finding room in our life to allow the Spirit to speak to us. But if we're driven by our passions, the Spirit's not going to have room to speak. If we're driven by our business, the Spirit's not going to have room to speak. We have to slow ourselves down enough, calm ourselves down enough to give the Spirit room to speak, to give the Spirit room to grow, to give the Spirit room to nourish these fruits of the Spirit that are there. We've got, sometimes the holy life is like being a gardener. We've got to tend to the work of the Spirit. We've got to give the Spirit room to grow these things in us. There's fruit the Spirit wants to grow in our life, but we've got to give the Spirit room to do it. So let's focus on that time with God. Our prayer time, our devotional time, in our service, and our worship. If we attend to the Spirit will grow the fruit in our life. So let's be about that. So anyway, I love the fruit of the Spirit. It's so important and so vital for our faith. So tomorrow we're going to pick up with chapter 6, verse 1. We're almost through with um, Galatians. I think I said we'll move to James after this because I think James is a good kind of contrast with the Galatians. So tomorrow we'll pick up with Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. Have a great day.